Magic, even to the New Ager, has a rather quaint sound in this day and in this time. The rise of rationalism, of scientific theory and practice, the approach of the intellect to the wonders of reality, all have tended to cast a shadow over the idea and the practice of magic. But magic was the science of pre-science. And it was more than that. There was a knowledge in the ancient times, much of it still unrecovered, of the interrelationship of the planet and its components with the human being and his or her components. That there could be predictable results of the combining of certain natural substances in a particular way. Now, all of this was wrapped in ritual and shaded with darkness and wonder and awe. And part of that was for the sake of the rubes, because all magicians, whether real magicians or charlatans, were also in show business to astound others and thus up the ante. If you can create fire and smoke clouds and loud bangs, then the rubes are going to pay you pretty well. Well, so has it been through the ages. But scrape away all of the ritual and all of the flash and bang, and you find first a unique relationship and understanding of the earth, passed on from generation to generation. Not all human beings used magic in that way, but all of them believed in it. Why did they believe in it? Because they saw that it worked. Human beings are very pragmatic. And if something doesn't work, it's not going to be believed in very long. And magic did work. And it worked for a number of reasons, part of which I have alluded to, of that marriage of human and planet in utilizing the energetic results of such unity. But another part of it had to do with the guidance of the human race. The fact that gods walked among humans. Now, I do not mean to imply that the streets were crowded with extraterrestrials and spirit guides and such like. But guides, including extraterrestrials, in human form, did indeed, with some frequency, visit the earthly realm. Now, the natives, the human beings of that time, were like the natives of later times, astounded by the effects of gunpowder and mystified by matters that had no connection with their knowledge and their culture and their heritage. And so, therefore, of course, it must be magic, because not understood. And so, to the early human beings, these manifestations were called God. The God of this, the God of that, not one God. They couldn't very well believe in one God when the society was seeing so many visitations of those whom they termed God. Those whom they termed God were those who were in active practice of the guidance of the human race before it was given the freedom of its mind, before it was given the ability to plan for the future, to take responsibility for its own actions, to create in godlike imitation, to explore the reaches of its mind. And this was a very dramatic time in human history, because the gods needed to perform miracles. The people, in the early religious works, not just the Christian Bible, referred often to human beings as sheep, needing guidance, and that, while somewhat insulting, was not inaccurate. And each human being heard the voice of God within his own head and within his own heart. The channels of the spirit of the higher self were more open in those times because the human being was yet a dependent, yet under active daily guidance, but not to the extent of now put your left foot forward, now put your right foot forward, not that sort of detailed guidance, but in learning about the earth and the human being's interaction with it, and the human being learning about himself and herself, learning of their reality. It is the child, again, learning the basics necessary to survive in this environment. The human beings who had been changed from the apes that they had been, modified, altered, so that they were capable on that physical level, potentially, of marrying and carrying the spirit within them. There had to be a refinement on the physical and intellectual levels so that the human being ultimately would be the fitting vessel for that eternal spirit, and so that the human experiment could continue to its ultimate outcome. And so moving beyond that then comes the time of the toddler and being held by the hand, and now do this. And if you wish to be fed, here is how you can effectively do this. Guidance, preparation, teaching, kindergarten. Then came the time when these miracles were manifest. Well, what kind of miracles are we talking about? What kind of magic are we talking about that the gods, the extraterrestrials, the guides in human form brought to the earth and to this human population of toddlers? Again, they needed to view these manifestations with awe and wonderment, seeing them well beyond their own capacity, so that the belief in the gods was strong, so that the obedience to the gods would be effectively maintained. These half-brutes needed to be taught. And but what the extraterrestrials, what the guides were doing was nothing more than what the potential of the human being contained within it as it was being engineered and brought slowly along in evolutionary fashion. It had to do with the manifestation, the manipulation of physical laws, many of which still not known or not understood. You see what alleged miracles that you've seen science perform in your own time. And if you think about them, you think, well, by goodness, that really is a miracle. How on earth can you send a color moving, speaking picture invisibly through the air so it can be received around the world? You know, how do you do these things? They seem miraculous. And to those having never encountered the television set, for example, it would be miraculous. It would be magic. But within your society, obviously, you have those human beings who understand how this does work. What is the structure and the function of the structure to create the phenomenon? And they understand that. But where? On a mechanistic level. And so when human beings, as a race, were given that freedom to expand and to explore, roughly at what you would look at as the dawn time of civilization, the time when written records began to be kept, not so many thousands of years ago. And in that period of time, as the human being explored his mind and begin to manifest the products of his mind, and gradually in fits and starts slipping back into darkness for a time, crawling back out and back up to a little bit higher peak, slipping back, crawling up again, gradually expanding the understanding of the nature of the mind, the workings of the mind, the wonders that can be created by ego mind. As this process continued up to the present time, well, the concomitant was that the belief in magic deteriorated. As I've said, if you don't see the magic performed, then how are you to believe in it? Faith alone? Well, that grows mighty thin on the ground when there's no one around working magic in front of you. Some few human beings in every generation over these last thousands of years have kept in often distorted form the secrets of the magic of the interaction of earth energy and human energy and divine energy. In the evolution of the duality, that belief that powers fear against the reality of love, in the development of that and in increased polarity of that human duality, there was lost the sense of being in charge or of being protected. So here the human being no longer protected, but not yet really in charge. Because with all of the experiments in the use of the mind and in the kingship of ego mind, not just in the realm of the development of science or literacy, but in the realm of war and conquest, all of this being felt, this was allegedly freedom, but the human beings didn't have the slightest clue how to handle the freedom, how to balance ego mind with spirit. And so these first human beings, creatures largely of instinct, being guided by the shepherds from afar, were not suddenly, but were finally granted this freedom. Thereupon the shepherds disappeared, saying, well, you're on your own now. Grow and build upon your failures as well as your successes. And so the evidences of miracles, of magic, began to diminish rather considerably at the same time that gradually humanity embraced the notion of rationality and the kingship of reason and of the ego mind. And this was a gradual process, progressing rapidly in one part of the earth for a time and then slipping back, progressing rapidly in another part of the earth at another time and then slipping back. But overall, the notion of magic began to disappear. And the secrets of what could create magic also began to disappear, unsupported by the cultures that previously believed in them. And so I am not saying that magic worked because people believed in it, because it was not a psychological phenomenon, it was factual, changing one thing to another. Long a human dream, but once a human reality. So, the time of magic, as seen as separate, as seen as the ultimate in power and the use of power, diminished and deteriorated. Much of it that did remain went underground. In the confusions of the emergence of the duality, the kingship of fear, well, these early human beings didn't have anything to worry about. Perhaps being eaten by lions, that sort of thing. But they didn't worry about tomorrow. They didn't worry about what might happen. They lived existentially, moment by moment. It was only with the freedom of the mind to plan ahead that with it came fear that which is unknown, and that which is unknown lies in the future. Generation after generation of experiencing that all human plans go astray undermined humanity's belief in itself and in its power and in its own self-confidence. It diminished. Humans began to see, yes, we can create wonders in our minds, with our minds, but we can create terrors with our minds also. What does lie around the next corner? Dare I look? Or should I simply cower in fear as that corner approaches? When you stop living in the present, that's when you start worrying. That's when you start fearing the unknown, because what the freedom of the mind did has nothing to do with power over the day after tomorrow. That rationality has only its efficacy in dealing with now. When it deals with tomorrow, it can create structure. It can create anticipation. But because it is not imbued with the vision of the Spirit that is an overview that sees all things in context, humanity has been operating in the dark on hypotheses that fall apart, that need constantly to be corrected. And you see this in science in your own time, that the more scientists learn about the nature of the universe, the more they keep having to change the constructs that they have used heretofore. Well, we were wrong back then, but now we're right. And then a year or two down the road, well, we were wrong back then, but now we're right. Well, even the dullest sort of fellow finally starts thinking, am I ever going to really be right for more than a year or two? Well, really, what's happening now is that humanity is bumping its head upon the limitations of the ego mind being king. It has reached as far as it can reach, and farther, in some cases, so that its own inventions and brilliant creations are turning upon humanity, because they were never balanced with wisdom. They were like the clever apes, grown cleverer and cleverer, and look what we can build, and look what we can do, and look how it can destroy us and control us. So what has taken place in each human life individually, the lessons that have been negative in their experiencing, you can't trust anyone. No one has your best interests at heart. You can't predict tomorrow. You don't know what's going to happen. Here today, gone tomorrow. Well, I'll see you tomorrow, God willing. No confidence whatsoever. But that fearful anticipation of that awful word, tomorrow. Now is the time when you regain your lost innocence, faith, pure, not having anything to do with dark fears about tomorrow or with dark memories relating to yesterday. All of that surrounded and encrusted human beings for these thousands of years. The innocence lost. Now, it is not a return to the old innocence, because the old innocence only worked as long as we had somebody holding us by the hand as human beings. Guiding. Now this, now this. The still small voice of guidance. Now you guide yourselves. Now you inherit the mantle of the great magician, Jesus the Christ. Why do you think Christianity grew so quickly? Because of the eloquence of his words? No, really, he didn't speak all that much. He wasn't an orator. Through example, through the life that he lived, and through the magic that he worked. A great magician lives just a couple of towns down the road. He turned water into wine. I'm telling you, it really happened. I know it sounds crazy. Just go check him out. My God, he did. All they had were a few loaves and a few fishes. They fed 5,000 of us. How could you do that? He's a great magician. Nothing draws the crowds like magic. Real magic. Now, I come to the point. Now, you have all of this. Now the magic that is you and your energy combined with the energy of Earth and its products and its constituent components, all of that is at your hands. Some of it has been forgotten and much of it has been forgotten and needs to be rediscovered. But the magic of the guides and the magic of the extraterrestrials, that's yours now. That's your heritage. You have to learn, like the sorcerer's apprentice, how magic works and how it can betray you. The magic of changing form and substance, of turning one thing into another. This magic that you are heir to is something that you will be exploring and building upon for thousands of years into the future. What has only been fantasy gradually becomes reality. And now, at this point of time where it's largely regarded as fantasy, is when you begin, within your own lives, to build your understanding of what magic is. Magic is the product of human action when the human being is complete, body, mind, spirit, one. The mind capable of the marvelous technical breakthroughs. When that mind is married, intimately one, with the guidance of spirit, all previous limitations disappear. Scientists of little imagination who say, well, all of that talk about hop, skipping, and jumping through the galaxy, through the universe, is just so much science fiction. Because the fact is, the human being couldn't withstand the heavy gravitational force necessary, couldn't live long enough. We can't go faster than light, even at the outside. And we're nowhere near that. So that's just nonsense. And I say to you, within 50 years, that's going to be your reality. Errant nonsense now, far, far away, but not so far away. If humans didn't change, if this breakthrough into wholeness hadn't happened, isn't happening, then then what I'm talking about would be fantasy, it would be science fiction, it would be nonsense. Because you'd be plugging away with the mind, but the mind cannot make the enormous leaps necessary for creating a new technology based on a new understanding of the forces of the universe, how they interact and how they can be played with. The great scientists through the ages, the great geniuses, have been able to make those leaps. But one here, one here, one here through the centuries. I am talking about a human race growing into its maturity, where the genius is not an anomaly in the culture, but is the norm. And I am, again, I repeat, not speaking about the distant future. I am speaking about now. I am speaking about your lifetime and the lifetimes of your children. And I speak to you about this with some degree of urgency because I want to encourage you to work magic. How do you work magic? Belief. Not because it only works if you believe in it, but because you need to break through the previous limitations of your imagination. You've been building confidence in yourselves in many different ways and in many different areas of your lives over the last few years. But at the same time that has been going on, your own capabilities have been growing even faster. This past Good Friday through Easter has been a time of anointing, where the seal of your evolutionary leap touches you on the brow and on the crown, where you may say to yourself, now I am grown, now I am new. An enormous bursting sweep of energy has been entering you over the last few weeks, greater than that, anything that has gone before. Its magnitude you do not comprehend, because its waves will continue to crash upon the shores of your being for many months and years to come. It is that breakthrough that allows everything else that follows it. The moment of anointing. All things are now possible, not simply the changes that you have already made in yourself and in your environment and in your relationships with people, but now you may begin to use the talents of the Spirit. Now you may begin to create magic. And now I encourage you to think of it as magic, to recognize that it's special. And it's not a series of illusions and loud bangs and flashes of fire and smoke. That this magic, this ability to create change and positive energy adaptation for the benefit of you and yours, is very real and operates on every level of your life. From cooking dinner to driving successfully on a long trip safely and pleasantly, to, as I've said before, finding a parking space where it seems none exist, to synchronizing consciously your life with the life of God and the universe. To be one. To be one. Exercise these talents. Just as in the olden days, magic was believed in because it was seen to work. So your own belief in your own magic will grow as you see it to work. There is no aspect of your life too insignificant for magic to be utilized. No aspect of your life too significant for magic to be utilized. Now, all of this, of course, operates within the context of your personal purpose and nature, your reason for being here now in this form. So it is not snapping your fingers and making $1 million arrive on your plate. It isn't that kind of flash, bang magic. It is a magic that transforms your life and your interaction with others and your interaction with your physical environment. It is the creation of brand new attitudes and understandings about yourself, as much as it is the mundane details of making sure before you leave that a parking space is waiting for you, that will appear for you, that you are synchronous with all of the various complexities of the movement of the universe. And so what you are doing is not making some car at a curb disappear in a puff of smoke so that you can park. It is that you are interacting with this unbelievably complex clockwork of shifts and changes on the physical level, so that without your knowing it, you are synchronizing yourself with somebody who's going to leave and drive away and leave a spot for you. He doesn't know it, and you don't know it on a conscious level, but you're plugging in to that network of shifts and changes so that you are a part of it, harmonious. We're talking about a brand new kind of life for you, where you're not struggling constantly against obstacles. Is that fully in place now? Of course not. You know that. But is it beginning? Is it beginning? Yes, I think you know that too. I think you know the beginnings of that sensation of peace and calm and readiness and adaptability and focus in the moment. That is the evidence of the beginnings of your wholeness and all that comes with that wholeness. Do not look to the past for any examples now. The magic that the sheep believed in, because it worked, disappeared when the sheep were given brains to think with. But now, those who've given brains to think with are now opening and connecting heart and brain, spirit and mind. So the beast, the physical, the beginning point in the earthly reality, became mind, became now spirit, all three in place, and so the barricades separating them, breaking down, washing away, and a unity of self is the outcome. And that means a brand new departure in human history. These conditions have not existed before, except, as I've said, in isolated examples for high purpose throughout history. But now it is the mass of humanity gradually over the next century changing, adapting, becoming. You are the pioneers in this, and I say, begin your play. And remember that it is the play of gods, the play of creation, the thrill of working magic, the sweet peace that accompanies the oneness with the universe, so that you can feel that harmony and that lack of obstruction and struggle that has been the hallmark of human life since it was given the dubious gift of the freedom of the ego mind. This is the reward for the years of darkness and struggle, struggling to master a reality you only dimly comprehended. Magic is now. It probably won't ever be called magic again. But think of it as magic for now. And work it in your life. Heal yourself. Heal others. Look to Christ. What did he do? What did he illustrate for you? What are the limits of his powers? None. He raised the dead. Now, I say to you, don't disappoint yourself and try to raise the dead. You're not ready for that yet. But begin at the beginning, and with all of that confidence and faith that you are the inheritors of Christ, that you are now the brothers and sisters of Christ, one and indivisible with the Spirit of God. What God can do, he is passing on to you at a speed growing rapid, but still at a speed that you can deal with. Be bold, think big, and soon it will become simply the way you live, that you automatically use your powers of magic. All right, you wake up in the morning, and for whatever reason you didn't sleep very well, you got to bed too late, you feel foggy, and you feel tired, and you're not ready to face the day. You don't have to feel like that. You don't have to put up with that. Spend a few moments in the peace of the inner self and transform your feeling. Transform that energy. Dip into the well of energy of the earth that is your mother. Feel the power in the veins and the arteries of the earth becoming one with your own, bringing harmony, bringing balance, eliminating the imbalance that caused the drowsiness, the headache, the what have you. Breathe it in. Feel it. And I feel wonderful. Are you kidding yourself? No, you're changing yourself. You can do that now. Every day. And soon it will be second nature to you. And you'll be creating new habit patterns, not based on fear and negativity. If you are facing a crisis in your work, now do you use your magic to defeat your enemies? And say, well, I'm going to make this guy sick so he doesn't even show up for work today. Or I'm going to draw a illusionary haze upon my boss's mind, and so he appreciates my project. It isn't that at all. It is understanding, A, that you are one with your path and you can't go wrong. That there aren't any kicks in the backside in store for you. 2, that you are in charge of your reality. And that you are, because you are one with yourself and one with God, you will not be dislocated in the wrong job, in the wrong circumstances. So you need to be open always to the possibility of change. Never feeling tethered, never feeling held, never feeling owned. And recognizing that that crisis that you're looking at may well indeed be a crisis, but it doesn't have to be approached with fear or dread or any kind of anticipation at all. It will be dealt with on its merits by you with the aid of your enlightened perspective. The issues will become clear to you. You will not be overexcited by them. You will be calm and you will deal with matters as they come. And you will recognize that whatever is the outcome of this particular situation, it will be perfect for you. And that isn't a con job you're doing on yourself, because you're beginning to learn enough about how you relate to the rest of humanity, to the planet and to the universe itself. You've taken enough turnings to see, well, there was something I was scared to death of, and it worked out fine. There was something I thought was going to end all of my hopes and dreams, and it turned me in a direction that I'm much happier with. There was a choice I made that was awfully scary, and look how wonderfully it's turned out. Well, that's going to continue to build, and you will act with more and more courage. Now, when you act with courage when you're running from fear, then there's bravado and shaking your fist and looking for trouble. That's not going to be the attitude at all. It is a serene and sublime awareness that you have no enemies who can do harm to you, that the adventure of your life is going to unfold under your feet, so to speak, and that you are ready for anything because you're not making detailed plans about how you think you want things to be next week, next year, next millennium. As you become one with your river, you grow powerful. And as you grow powerful, you express your power in every way. And one of the beauties of being able to express your power is that you gradually realize that you will never abuse it. That your power will be used in love, because that's the source of power, not fear. I want to emphasize to you, this is the dawn of a glorious time for you. Do not be seduced or frightened by the headlines, by the breadlines, by the disjointed dysfunctionalism of a disintegrating society. Float on the surface of the rushing waters. Be delighted and amazed by what takes place in your own life and in your relationship with others, and in the growth of your personal power. Tend the garden that is growing, and not the structure that is being destroyed. Build the new reality within you and among you. And you will see that this time, which so many others will see as fearful and dark and threatening and disastrous, is indeed a time of great growth, great joy, great humor, great delight. Letting go bit more day after day, letting go of fear, letting go of despondency, letting go of the ups and downs of the roller coaster that you have been emotionally on board for so long, and finding that what is replaced is not some boring ho-hum sort of perpetual smile and dazed stroll through life, but an exciting and invigorating and energizing sharing of energy of the earth and of the universe and of your fellow beings that empowers you and strengthens you more than you could have ever imagined. It is all that glorious and much, much more. And because your attitude does create your perception of reality, I say to you, let your attitude dance and sing and laugh and play, because that is what this is about. When the child begins to be exposed to what it is like to be a human being, does the child learn best by standing over him with a stick, or through the marvelous agency of play and exploration? This is the childhood of your true, complete human lives. Live it as a child, full of delight, testing yourself, reaching beyond yourself, growing in strength, growing in understanding. You cannot fail, because failure is part of the illusion of fear. And as the reality of love swallows and digests that illusion, there's no shadow left. And it's hard to get used to living without a threatening shadow. But what a delight to get used to it. Yes?
Plautus, I have someone in my life that I'm wondering if we have any past connections. His name is Gary. I call him Rex.
I think that your instincts regarding this individual are accurate, and that the past life connection that brought a feeling of betrayal, disappointed hopes, is knocking at your door. The image is of brushing off a fly. Brushing off a fly, an irritant, but of no significance. There will come to you 3 individuals in the next 6 months, each male, each representing a past life issue that you have brought to a head and into completion during this life. There is no threat implicit in any of this. It is to assure you that you have moved beyond the past, that no ill can come to you, that siren songs that have seduced you in the past will no longer do so. In the further course of this coming year, a great light dawns within you that draws to you an individual who will be instrumental in the transformation of many physical aspects of your life, many what you might call real-world considerations. If you want to follow that up, go ahead.
Give me some insight on real-world considerations.
Income, opportunity on a career level, a leap forward on that physical plane in terms of satisfaction, reward. Not a passive situation of you being handed a reward, but of you having a door opened to a treasure trove, but you must walk through the door. October.
I'm curious about my new supervisor. His name is Tom Mackey.
He seems to be a person of goodwill, but a little confused. He doesn't. The expression is he doesn't have it all together. He's not a loose cannon, but he's not really fastened down either. But as I say, I think the most important thing to recognize, he is a person of goodwill and can be dealt with honestly, and reasonably directly. I say reasonably directly because it seems that he has trouble focusing his mind and paying attention. Part of that, I think, is an acute self-consciousness. Mm-hmm. And so he will respond on the spot to things that, if given some time to think it over, he would respond differently. But he doesn't. He thinks about things later, often too late. But so if I were to deal with him on direct level, I would couch my terms and what I say that in such a way that does not demand an instant response. Could you get back to me with this or on this at some later time or specific time, but not instantly. He's not dumb. He's just confused, and he needs time to focus on what you have asked, what you have inquired about, because his first response is going to be a bit defensive because he feels so unsure of himself.
Advisors, can you give me some insight on my future relationship with my current boss, LaDonna? Something has died for me recently, and I don't know that I can...
Yeah, you're not going to be involved with this individual very much longer at all. In fact, died, that's a good image, because what I see is a leaf curling, the juice gone, crinkling, drying. I really think still this month there's going to be some indication to you of an ending, or within a short time anyway. And a timely ending. A timely ending. Don't cling to something that's died. It just rots.
Plautus, how best can I help my son? He's come to me with a financial concern and worry, and he's not asking me to give him money, but he's asking me for advice and guidance, and he's also asking for me to help him set up a loan. But that doesn't feel good to me, and I'm wondering how best I can help him.
Give me the name.
Will.
The best way that you can help him is from a distance. Do not become financially entangled in this situation. Limit it to what you've spoken of, offering your advice, your input, your wisdom, your point of view, to help him to get a loan. I would say use your judgment. It would be fine if you wanted to do that, as long as you don't help him by becoming responsible for the loan. This action, this situation for him is a separating situation. It is, and I'm saying separation, not just limiting it to growing up and separating as every human must do, but separating himself from a past belief system. I would say use your best wisdom, but don't try to stop him from going through with what he has in mind. The process that this creates for him is timely and appropriate. But, as I say, try to be the kind, understanding, wise, insightful friend, and not be the parent. The parent always wants to protect, and there's nothing wrong with that, up to a point. There comes a time then where the parent must say, well, here's my input, and take it, leave it, do what you wish with it, but I'm not going to bend over backwards to push you or pull you in any direction. Let him go through this process. And by saying that, I'm not saying, oh, this is going to be some terrible lesson for him that he needs to experience anyway. It doesn't have to be a terrible lesson at all, but it is a separation for him of his past vision of himself, and it's a good thing.
Plautus, about a year ago, my husband and I got involved in this business, and last November, John went full-time at it. And right around that time, things started to really slow down. And so we're kind of like really on the edge and wondering, I've had a lot of doubts, but trying to keep faith and just wondering what's the future.
Keep going a step at a time, a day at a time. Your faith is not to focus on, I really believe that this is going to be down the road, something special and so forth. That's implicit, but it shouldn't be your focus. The faith should be a matter of practice, of keeping on with it. Not with grandiloquent dreams, but dealing with each day as the times and the timing changes. I think that you're going to receive encouraging news in May regarding the work. But it's not a time to abandon it or to say, well, nice try, but it's not working out. It's time to dig in for the longer haul.
Right path.
Yes.
Well, I have someone else in my life named Kevin. I don't understand what's going on with this person.
Kevin is going around heavily armed. The image I see is of him with spears, holding a store of spears on his shoulders. And I think that is represents his own attitude toward life. Somewhat defensive, somewhat fearful, but looking not to be a victim, but the attitude is, the unspoken attitude is, do unto others, but do it first. And I don't mean to paint a negative picture of this individual. There is no one in this room who has not gone through aspects of that same process and mindset. But I would say to you, see, the image that I have is that he's moving off in this direction, and that you should keep some distance between the two of you, because the phase of his journey that he's on now may have some fallout. There's a sense that, well, what's the wonderful expression, that he's riding off in all directions. That you need to stay in your centered position. Because whatever's going on with him now is drawing him off in what will be seen to be a false position. In terms of the connection between the two of you, very frankly, I get a warning. And I hate saying that because, oh my God, generally people interpret a warning as being a warning of some horrible disaster, and that's not it. The warning that I'm getting relating to your interaction with him is, again, one of distancing. And I think that within quite a short time, you're going to see the reason for that, and that the issue will cease to be of importance. He's moving off in another direction. Also, part of the nature of the distance, the separation between you, is intrinsic to who you are and to who he is. There's a sense that he's living in a different reality than you, that you don't see things the same way, or even approximately the same way. I think that you will not be able to communicate effectively with him because it's the old apples and oranges sort of thing. He's not equipped right now to understand the reality that your perspective embodies.
I have a question about myself and my partner, Vita. We're merging our energies together pretty heavily at this point, and I feel that she's very confused, more threatened to take the experience, to go for the experiences. Not as much as I am anyhow, not too threatened about that. feel like
That's a matter of time and timing.
okay. I feel like you should change your mind pretty much every day about it.
Yes.
So I'm very confused. It's very draining for me. I'm not sure.
Don't get buried in her parade of emotions. She is feeling a push-pull, step forward, step back, this way, that way. Well, that's necessary for her. It's not necessary for you to suffer from it. You must recognize that what is for you in a positive way will manifest. No question, no equivocation. That something that will bring benefit to you will also bring benefit to the other person involved, and that you need not pay a lot of attention to the shifts and changes along the road. You are more balanced than she. Does that mean then that you need to become unbalanced because she is? No. And neither does it mean that she needs to become balanced at the same pace and in the same place you are. You are still moving on parallel tracks. But hers is up and down and back and forth, but you're staying in the same orbit, the connection isn't severed, or near being severed. Don't push, don't rush, take it easy, lighten up. Don't get involved with her daily ins and outs and ups and downs. You don't need that. And there's no, literally you don't need it, there's no need for that to be a part of your experiencing. When that takes place, it's not that you turn your face away, but that you recognize that one day up becomes down the next day. So what? I'll say that this matter will be cleared, clarified, resolved to your satisfaction likely by June or in June. Which means, of course, that there's a couple of months still of backing and forthing and upping and downing. Doesn't mean no progress will be made, nothing will be decided. Just means there's still a period of processing left to go before outcome appears.
Question. I recently went to Sacramento to visit a very old childhood friend named Phyllis Clark. And I went there because I felt she, in a deep sense, needed me. And she asked me to ask you if you could pick up on anything that she might be going through at this time.
I see sadness in her as of something lost or on the verge of being lost, ended. And a tendency to want to hold on to something that needs to be gone. So it's a separation, it's an experience of loss, but it's a preliminary to a freeing that is of more importance. I would say to her, don't focus on what is ending in your life. Don't try to hang on to it. Don't pay that much attention to it. Turn your awareness to what is developing. Again, it's an attitudinal change. It's that old, look at that glass. Is it half full or is it half empty? Well, you can say, well, it's both. Well, it's not both, because it's an attitudinal question. And what is developing for her is much more positive than what is completing within her and in her life, in her experiencing. And I don't see it as serious as she does, as being as serious as she sees it.
Plautus, recently I've been concentrating more on my singing, and I'm feeling that I should maybe put more energies in this area. Could you comment on that, please?
Yes, and I'll comment in the context of what I was speaking of earlier, magic. In terms of talent and the use of uses of talent, the development of talent, this new growing capability that I've been talking about is very manifest. That in terms of, as you say, singing, you can, through the use of your psychic spiritual abilities, through the positive, induced and encouraged flow of inner energy, you can use your psychic spiritual abilities to extend your range, to develop the composition of your voice, its value and color and brightness, by visualizing those concepts in terms of light and energy, and by feeling them take place, and by singing with greater expansion, risk, commitment. Don't be cautious, in other words. Say, well, my voice is all right within these constraints, within these limitations, and I'll work within this. Let's see where those limitations can be stretched to before they disappear altogether. Yes, it is a useful choice for you to make. It will not, in all likelihood, become the sole or primary focus of your musical work, but it looks very positive in terms of encouraging you to develop it and to recognize that you don't have to go by your past experience of yourself or experience as a musician. You can create new standards and new approaches that transcend the past notion, seeming very rational and cold and clear cut, but extending beyond that.
It sounds almost silly to me before I ask it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I found myself lately getting angry with people that I love because they're trying to tell me what they think I should do, and I know they're doing it out of love, and I know they're pushing me because I'm a lot slower at getting around to some of these things, but how can I, and yet it makes me feel very bad, and I don't want to hurt anyone.
Don't feel bad about your anger. The anger is very justifiable and a very important sign of your own progress. It's a sign of the growth of strength of your own ego, a growth of the belief in your own choices, and the faith in the life view that you have developed over many years. It is understandable and probably frequently experienced that those, however close in many ways, who are not receiving this broader outlook and deeper understanding become irritating in their limitation and say the same old things and just can't see the expanded view. And the clearer you see it and the better you feel about that expansion, the more irritating it becomes to have people picking at you with matters you know don't make a damn bit of difference and are not relevant to you. And why should you put up with them? Well, why indeed? You don't need to put up with them. And if you step on a few toes along the way, well, you're likely to be less interfered with because people don't like to have their toes stepped on. And it doesn't mean going around denouncing people. It's a very positive thing of standing up for yourself and being secure and content in your own belief. So now perhaps one might think that the ideal is, well, I forgive you, and I will not be touched or hurt by anything or irritated by anything you might say. And, well, that's all very well, but it's not true. It doesn't happen that way. You are still in a dynamic process of growth, and anger is a part of a healing process. It is, as I say, the recognition that you are growing beyond what you were, and you can measure yourself against longtime friends and foes and see that you see their limitations all the more clearly against the background of your own growth. And so you need to be firm, and you need to say, well, I appreciate your point of view, but it's not mine, and close the subject. Be firm, be clear, and don't be tempted to get into self-defeating circular arguments.
Well, it's been about a month that I haven't been working, and I'm just delighted with the things that I'm doing and having a wonderful time. And I haven't made any money yet, but I also feel like I've gotten some ideas recently that are really likely to bring about a lot of money very quickly.
Yes, that is exactly what's going to happen. And this period of time that you've been going without the income, that's important too, because as a test for your own belief in yourself and in the path that you have taken, and belief that in the course of taking this path, you're not going to be let down, you're not going to be abandoned, you're not going to be defeated, you're not going to starve. And so for a time you say, well, the money's not coming in, but I'm not panicking either, because the money is coming. And as soon as you asked that part of the question, I saw the image of gold flowing. So it doesn't look very far away, and it does look like a sudden access to funds.
It feels like I need to be able to think about doing things in the future as I want to.
Yes, and that would be delightful, and that may come about. What will come about is whether or not you have that excess of money that you speak of here, whether or not you have that, you won't have the fear, the doubts associated with money. You will always be sure that you will be provided for and that the money will be there for what you need to do. Beyond that, some will prosper far beyond that, some won't, but it won't make any difference to either one of them if they're in the path.
Plautus, could you tell me a little bit about my brother and his wife, their past life, Marshall and Adrian, had a long history of pretty ill relationship. I was wondering past life.
Well, they've had enjoyed vast wealth together in past life. Well, I shouldn't say enjoyed. They have possessed vast wealth together in past life circumstances, and it looks sort of like a Babylonian time frame and scene. And they had a blood feud, literally. Literally a blood feud. There were deaths involved, death of children, betrayal by relatives, a very familial kind of thing. One thinks perhaps of the Montagues and the Capulets, or of the Hatfields and the McCoys. A feud that extended beyond the two of them into a sort of crusade of family against family, and with the prizes being physical wealth, material wealth, wielded as power, a great deal of greed and great deal of jealousy, and in present life circumstances, the sense of having been cheated, not treated with the proper respect, not honored with the proper responses, both of them feeling betrayed, both feeling cheated, both feeling vindictive, neither of them realizing that this has been, and I think I don't exaggerate, is the 10th life experience between the two of them, which they've been working on these same matters of antagonism and mutual distrust. And I fear that this is not the last.
Is there any hope for them?
Is there any hope for my brother, or actually both of them?
Well, I don't like to say no, there's no hope, but in relationship with the issues between the two of them, I would say they should disengage, ceasefire, move to opposite sides of the earth, get on with other choices in their lives, other developments in their lives. What I envision between them is pretty implacable still at this point. two entrenched and opposed positions. Well, in the First World War, that led to 4 years of bloody combat where a yard or two of territory may change hands. It's not profitable.
Can you tell me a little bit about their daughter, who's very close in age to my daughter, and how this is going to affect her?
Well, I'm not being negative, but this is the enacting of an old and repeated process in which the child has been the victim in some cases, in which they themselves have also been victimized as children in other life circumstances. The child is going to be used by both camps. This, I remind you, of course, is her karma too, and she's there for a reason and for a purpose that will ultimately serve her. But she's in a stage now where there isn't anything she can do about it. So I think in the shorter run, assuming that are they together now?
They're separating.
Well, good. As unpleasant as that is, would only get worse. This is a life of opportunity for them to stop hurting their children. It is an opportunity for them to create the first stage of cooperation and the opening to the possibility of the development of love and mutual acceptance in the future by dealing fairly, by dealing justly, by dealing humanely with the issue of the child. That is not foreclosed. As to the struggle between the two of them, I don't really see that changing in this life. But in terms of making that first step and lightening the load for the child, they do have that within their power.
A question about my daughter Francesca. Tomorrow's going to be her birthday, 6th birthday. Can you tell me anything about her?
Well, this is going to be a year of tremendous growth for her. I would also expect her to be quite emotional during the course of the year, particularly in terms of the expression of anger and or frustration. Because there are obstacles to the growth, to the freedom, to the personal expression. But it is emphatically not a negative. It's the establishment of her identity and personality and the expression of her efforts to separate her identity, her ego, herself, from being simply a reflection or extension of others. So it's a good time for her development of identity, which is a key matter in this life for her. And I would say she should be given during this period of time clear, firm, consistent limits, but big ones. A lot of space for choice and for development and so forth. But she has to know that there's a fence, and she can't budge that fence when she reaches a certain point. The freedom is important to her, but at this stage of her life, and not simply relating to her age, but to her issues, that freedom can be abused. She needs the security of knowing that there is a consistent, though gradually changing, limit, fence that she's going to touch, but give her plenty of space within that. Very creative year for her. And the effects of this great energy surge that has been experienced, focused on the Easter weekend, is also very powerfully affecting her. In a positive way, but sometimes the most positive thing gets so noisy that you think there must be something wrong, but there isn't.
Paul, I have a foster son named Steve Harris, and he has a child named Brandon, who is 5 years old. And Brandon is showing a lot of signs of being a really unhappy child. And I'm wondering...
How old is the boy?
He's 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Almost, he'll be 6, I guess, in May. But I guess I'm wondering whether he needs a change in a relationship with his dad or with his mother because they're divorced.
His father holds him in great high esteem, loves him and seeks to protect him and be a father to him in the best sense. I do not see that as the source of the child's agitation. The mother I see as being headstrong, bullheaded, and in her attitudes at least tending to be punitive. Not stable. Control, very much an issue with her. But largely I'd say for the boy that this is not a curse. This is not going to be an endlessly ongoing sort of thing. It seems that matters are coming to a head and will likely be decided during the course of the summer, probably in July. There may be a change of custodial arrangements, but in any event, there's going to be a resolution to the present issues that are causing the child despondency and agitation.
Any specific advice for the dad of how best to help his son?
Let the son know that he is always there, always at his right hand, always present, that there is no chance of the father letting him down or not being there for him when he's needed. He needs the father to be the stable anchor, the constant source of love and approval to help him through this rough spot. I think that any direct attack upon the mother by the father would have negative results for the boy, for the whole situation. But it does seem that there'll be a series of steps leading to a change in the summer.
Plautus, I've had years of conflict with my sister. Is this part of a past life pattern?
Can I have her first name?
Pat.
The first impression I get is that if she wanted to climb to the top of the mountain and you were in the way, she would climb over you or kick you out of the way. That there is a tremendous competitive aspect to this, largely relating to a single-minded kind of force on her part. She doesn't seem very flexible. Seems to think pretty much in a narrow way. I think the most significant past life relationship between the two of you had to do with love rivalry, and in a contest that she lost and has never forgiven you for her loss. And on your part, residual guilt relating to that same experience where you were the winner in the matrimonial sweepstakes. I'd say that this is going to be more amenable to change and to healing probably 4 or 5 years down the road. That until then, well, do the best you can and to minimize conflict. But I don't see the door opening on her part for a healing. And I think there's still a lot of resentment on your part too. And I'd say let it all be. Don't try to change anything dramatically in the connection between the two of you, because it doesn't look like the healing potential is there yet, but it is going to come.
Can you tell me why I have consistent negative feelings towards my partner's friend, Joe?
I think you are reflecting his own. It doesn't. It looks to me like that. Well, if he wasn't a friend of your partner's, you'd both be happy to cross the street to avoid each other. It's not just coming from you. But I also don't see it as being any big dramatic karmic thing that you have to resolve with him. It seems to me that the source of this divisive energy really lies with your partner. That and not in a conscious sort of way, but the chemistry formed by that triangle of energy has its nexus with the partner. But not a big deal. I think it's something you can sort of let go of, and that as time moves forward, it's just not going to be an issue.
Oh, I him last week. I don't remember anything about the dream other than about it.
Well, I do not see any proximate reason to fear. In other words, there's no danger that I see emanating. He's not the brightest person in the world. And that's the impression I get anyway. Just it doesn't. He seems sort of mulish. Don't tell him I said so. I don't want Paul. I don't want Paul to get beaten up.
I don't think he has any thoughts of this dimension at all.
So. No. I think that's quite true. He's not among those present. Yes.
At work with two women who seem to be very much against me, very envious is my intuition. Vicki and Brenda, can you tell me anything about this and what I could possibly do?
You can disarm them best by ignoring them most. The first impression that I got when you mentioned them was chickens in the chicken yard clucking, and from the memory of the song, pick a little, talk a little, pick a little, talk a little. This is just pebbles on the roof. It's sort of annoying, but they don't have any power, and it's just their general life discontent that turns their... If it wasn't you, it'd be someone else. They're pickers and people who like to tear down others for the illusion of power it gives them. They're most determinedly one-dimensional in their thinking and in their development. Yes. You can waste so much energy on resenting or fighting back against those who have no real power over you at all. And the wonderful thing is when you realize that they can be safely ignored, there's nothing for them worse than being ignored, so they'll simply turn their attention to someone who'll react more. So, unless there's someone just trembling with something to say, 1, 2, 3, I'm going to close this this session, and thank you all for your attention, and bid you Godspeed as you discover the value and application of magic in your lives.